Hello, my name is Adele Fereres, and I am doing a presentation on Arthur Briggs. So, a little historical background. Arthur Briggs was born in 1901 and died in 1991. He was a prominent figure in the history of jazz music, and he's primarily known as a trombonist and a band leader. He did grow up in the United States, but he spent um, a lot of his career in Europe, and particularly France, where he made significant contributions to the jazz scene. His music style blended elements of traditional New Orleans style and what they call the swing style, which influenced countless musicians of his time. And he was a key figure in popularizing jazz music in Europe during the early and mid 20th century. Lastly, despite facing challenges related to racial discrimination, Briggs persevered and left a lasting legacy in the history of jazz music. So, some of the experiences he had in France. During his time in France, Arthur Briggs experienced a rich immersion in the vibrant jazz culture, and primarily in cities like Paris, where he collaborated with renowned European jazz musicians and engaged in cultural exchange between American and European jazz styles. This afforded him a lot of recognition and appreciation for his musical talents, along with so many opportunities for performances and recordings. He really had a touch of bringing in a lot of diverse audiences. But like I said before, which I'll explain a little more later in this presentation, he did have to face several challenges throughout his career, including racial discrimination, financial instability, which is very typical for jazz musicians, and the difficulties of adapting to a whole new cultural environment. So, next I will be talking about what kind of impact France had on Arthur Briggs. Um, it talks a lot about the fact that his approach to work, his creativity, his critical thinking, his political consciousness, and sense of empowerment really started in France. He was immersed in this vibrant jazz culture, and he found new sources of inspiration and collaboration, which broadened his creative thinking, allowed him to make a lot more diverse work, which became very famous. Interactions with European musicians really stimulated his critical thinking, as I said, and he really fostered this kind of reflection on societal issues such as race and identity in his work. He did sacrifice a sense of cultural rootedness and face challenges of integration, um, not only due to racial discrimination, but as well as language and cultural barriers. Um, while like had those unfairness things while going like through the prevalent systemic inequalities and racial discrimination and in Europe during that time. So, some of the main contributions that Arthur Briggs had on France, he significantly influenced the European jazz scene, um, the New Orleans impact with the French culture really contributed to the evolution of jazz music in Europe. And a few ways that French culture um, shaped Briggs is he became a more vibrant and new artist because of this supportive environment. France at the time was very into musical innovation and collaboration, and this allowed him to explore a lot of new styles and techniques. Lastly, the cosmopolitan atmosphere of France really facilitated those interactions with these diverse audiences, musicians, and this overall enriched his artistic visions and had a huge impact on how he was able to create music. And Even though Briggs's contributions to jazz were very significant, it is important to recognize all the challenges and inequalities that he did go through. As an African American musician, he definitely faced barriers and challenges in achieving recognition and success. And this is really what highlights the need to address historical inequities within the music industry and really to ensure equitable opportunities for all musicians, despite or whichever background they are. Arthur Briggs significantly contributed to transforming French society and culture through his pioneering work in jazz music. And as a prominent figure in the European jazz scene, Briggs introduced a whole new type of music styles and took that New Orleans influence with him to emerge it to West European culture. And this helped him a lot, kind of fitting in to this new culture and dialogue and broadening his experience as a musician and person overall. So, through Briggs's activity in France, Arthur Briggs impacted Western notions of blackness by challenging these stereotypes and reshaping perceptions of race and identity. And by achieving success and recognitions in fields such as music, literature, and art, it really demonstrates the diversity and complexity and undermines that prevailing stereotype of black inferiority. And his presence in French society really fostered a cultural exchange and promoted a more nuanced understanding of culture in Western contexts. And additionally, Briggs's contributions to French culture helped to elevate the status of Black artists and intellectuals on the global stage, which further challenged Eurocentric perspective and really expanded the representation of Black voices in Western societies. Thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed my presentation.